July, 1776. George stood before the men to give us a speech today. Congress wrote a Declaration of Independence. We are a separate nation, at long last. The United Colonies are to be free and independent states, George said. We cheered and tears fell from my eyes. No longer would we be under British control. All the things the early settlers had suffered and even the deaths of the natives who had been here first, now we were a country. What that meant for the rest of the natives, I had no idea. But perhaps there could be peace. Once we separated from Britain and they acknowledged us as a country, we could make peace with the tribes west of the Appalachian Mountains. We are free. August, 1776. 32,000 British soldiers attacked our force of only 20,000. Casualties are heavy but we hold fast. September, 1776. Now that I have more time, I will quickly recount what happened in New York. It offered the British a perfect staging ground for their entire fleet to form a base, which was why George brought our army here and built up our defenses before the attempt on his life. With so many British troops, we were all unsure whether they would attack Long Island or Manhattan. George split our troops. The day the Brits attacked Long Island, false information came in and told George that only a few thousand had arrived. We believed it was the diversion for the real attack on Manhattan. That was not the case, but one of our soldiers managed to light a signal, warning us of the British attack through the Gowanus Pass. I set out with a number of troops from different regiments, over 1,000 in total. We divided the men, part of them in an apple orchard on the south side of the pass, while our leader, a man named Sterling, headed to the north on a hill overlooking the pass. Below the hill, the pass crossed a small bridge over a drain into a marshy area. We fired upon them and took down many of their troops. We eventually retreated to another large hill over 200 feet tall, which we called Battle Hill. Here, our men engaged with the Brits for many hours. The Redcoats tried to outflank us. It almost didn't work, until their Hessians attacked. Fierce German fighters and most of them working for Veritas. I had encountered them many times and recognized the Veritas insignia on their uniform. I charged into them, firing my musket and hitting one man, before using my bayonet to take out two more. Three surged at me, one from the side and a blow toward my head, which I ducked out of the way from at the same moment that I kicked one in front of me, but one on my right stabbed my right arm with his bayonet. Instead of reeling from the wound, I tightened my grip on my musket and whirled the bayonet toward him. He twisted his bayonet inside my arm, which forcibly jerked my arm to the side. It caused me to drop my musket as well as tore the wound open. A cry of pain escaped me. "Come on!" Samuel fired into the men with Peter right beside him. "Jacob, here!" The shots surprised the Veritas Hessians, so we charged back the opposite way. Retreat! They had broken through our left flank. One of our commanders, named Sullivan, was captured, though most of us escaped. Peter wrapped up my arm and we retreated to Brooklyn Heights for safety and temporary reprieve. At this time, George met up with us and realized that we'd been wrong. The British had sent their entire force to attack Long Island, not just part of it. More of our men were surrounded as they tried to escape in front of the Vec Cortelyou house and, from there, retreated across Gowanus Creek. The mush bogged them down and we had to watch as they were fired upon by the British who chased them, yet we were powerless to stop them. George shook his head. "Good God, what brave fellows I must lose this day." We all believed the British commander would siege us at Brooklyn Heights, but he did not. The East River was to our backs and the British soldiers, though they weren't marching toward us, began to dig trenches. A storm passed through, so George ordered more regiments to reinforce us and his cannons to fire into British troops. With it, a heavy fog settled over, which gave us the perfect cover to use the Brooklyn ferry to escape to Manhattan. We prayed and thanked God for saving us. Fleeing from New York has been difficult, but it is under British control, for now. I hope we have a chance to regain it soon. November, 1776. We have faced a series of defeats. General Howe, with his mixture of Hessians and Veritas soldiers, overtook us as the White Plains, and forced us to abandon our fort, called Fort Washington. We have just left Fort Lee and have retreated into New Jersey just as winter arrives. Both forts were along the Hudson River, so it seems as if we are losing more and more ground. January 1777. I spoke to George privately to tell him that many of the Hessians were not just Germans. Tarek, his group Veritas fights with them. Then, they have to be taken care of. George informed me that his spies discovered that 16,000 Hessians hold Trenton on the far bank of the river. Outside, harsh snows had fallen, and while some were likely celebrating Christmas, George led over 2,000 soldiers into boats across the Delaware River. It was a high risk and the men were in bad condition from the cold. It reminded me of a dark time, so I pushed that out of my thoughts. Though the weather had risk of killing our men from the cold, it did just as we had hoped. It blinded the Veritas sentries. Snatching my musket with a bayonet on it, I hopped out of the boat and was first to storm inside the barracks. The mixture of Hessians and Veritas soldiers sat around a table, eating a Christmas dinner. "Attack!" the startled commander shouted. I leapt on the first Veritas soldier, who had risen quicker than the rest. His bayonet and mine clashed, but I shoved him backward. He slammed against the wall, so I stabbed him, but ducked beneath a soldier behind me who tried to slam a chair against me. Sliding my feet across the floor, I knocked him to the ground, then snatched the chair and slammed it onto the back of the German trying to flee to my left. 106 of them died, and over 900 surrendered. At last, we had a victory.